All right. Welcome to a very special episode of Fine Music. Episode number 723. 10 questions with me. Had to get around to myself. I've been saying that in all the other ones. And of course, this is your invitation to do this with me as well. So let's get started. Question number one. What was your first musical experience? I took notes, but then I remembered these things. So that's why it's pretty legit for myself. I most distantly remember watching Beatles cartoons on Saturday morning when they were first run, maybe back in 1965. I don't know. That sounds about right. And then when it comes to a record, the earliest record I can remember is my older brother's record, Peter, Paul, and Mary's live concert recording that had a couple of children's songs on it, like the one about the dog, Blue, very humorous. Looking for some traces of you, that one. And then the poignant 500 Miles, which I guess is a song can be loved by anyone of any age, whether they totally understand it or not. It's a very pleasant song. So that's the earliest I can remember. Number two, my parents, what music did they listen to? My father was into big band music, like Glenn Miller. And then I remember he had a console stereo in the living room with some records, right, in the big wooden pocket. And one of those records that everybody remembers is Herb Alpert's Tijuana Brass Whipped Cream and Other Delights, right? For that green cover with a strategically placed whipped cream. I guess you listened to it. Hard to recall so many years ago. For my mother, I know she was into Elvis Presley, and then later on in her life, she was into KC and the Sunshine Band. She was she dug KC. She was a widow at an early age, 47, so that's understandable, although she never did remarry. And probably her favorite song, as I recall, was "That's the Way I Like It." Yeah, anything that was a hit by Casey and the Sunshine Band, she was into. Number three. Yeah, this took some mind tracking. What was the first 45 you bought? For me, it was, as I recall, the Jackson 5, ABC 123. I remember very distinctly the Motown label on that 45. As far as 33 RPM record, the earliest one I can remember buying was Intervision, Stevie Wonder, Intervision. But I got cassette player first for Christmas, and so I bought a cassette before I ever bought a record, and that was definitely memorable. Alice Cooper School's Out, although it was in cassette form, so there were no extras. But I really enjoyed listening to that music a whole lot. I was really into that one, School's Out, and of course, Billion Dollar Babies followed that up. um, I never bought 8 tracks. My sister did, and my best friend did. They had 8 track players, and I remember Rolling Stones. It's only rock and roll on my friend's car, 8 track. First CD must have been 1986. It was a Vangelis one. It was either Chariots of Fire or China. I remember which one. It was definitely on that German gramophone label right there. I don't know. It's red. Had a red stripe or something around it. Uh, yeah, that's it. Okay, number four. First download. No way I'm gonna remember that. Even though I've downloaded thousands of songs. Number four. What was your first concert? That's easy to remember. I remember taking the bus when I was 16, 1976, in the summer, going to the ELO concert at the Universal Amphitheater, which was an outdoor place back then. And I just, I went up to the ticket window, bought a ticket for little old me. I got a ticket in the middle of the fourth row. Excellent seats. And it was my first exposure to really live music right in front of my face like that, rock and roll. And so Bevan on the drums made a deep influence on me, as you'll find out in a later question. As far as my favorite concert act, it's got to be Yes. Right. I first saw them in 1977. I think it was at the Inglewood Forum. I saw them shortly after at the Long Beach Arena. I thought Yes every time they came into town for years and years and years, in every incarnation they had, all the way up to the pandemic, really. Yeah. So I must have seen them at least 30 times, approaching 40 times. I caught John Anderson solo every time he went solo, right? He had that illness and then he did his first comeback from the illness in 2009 up in San Luis Obispo area, Arroyo Grande, I think it was. Yeah. And then he did one in Santa Barbara and his way down here. Saw him at some of the local small venues. Okay. I think I answered that question. Move along. Number five. What is your favorite music genre? Well, I'm gonna have to say the truth. It's instrumental music is my number one, and that all came about because I heard Kraftwerk, Audubon back in 1974 when I was the tender age of 14, and it wasn't the first side. Audubon, was a side-long song that had some singing in it, but the second side was four instrumental tracks. Made a huge influence on me that instrumental music was even possible, right? I dug those. It was like Comet Melody 1, Comet Melody 2, Morning, but in German, it was like, I don't know, Morgan's Game or something, and Midnight with the other one. So I just opened my mind to instrumental music and I started seeking it out. I found quite a bit of it uh, in the fusion area, jazz rock. You had the Jeff Lorber fusion, for example, became one of my early favorites. Um, and many other favorites down the line. Uh, Got into Steve Roach, Michael Stearns, very big. Uh, Talk about it more in another video. But I would be remiss if I didn't just say instrumental. So prog rock. I mean, prog rock was huge for me. The Big Six, as they're called in prog rock, and blues rock too. Blues rock. When I was also that tender age of 14 in 1974, I listened to K Rock FM and got a huge taste of blues rock. I even recorded it from the radio to my cassette recorder, and I think I still have that tape somewhere. It was very formative for me. Everything on that thing, I went out and sought out and bought for blues rock. And I remember there was a Beatles medley. So at that time, I had just heard in '73, I'd heard the Red and Blue albums at a friend's house for the first time, and became a big Beatles fan because of that. And as far as blues rock goes, I remember hearing Traffic, that song Rock and Roll Stew. Loved that song, fell in love with it right away. And then the song by Humble Pie, although I didn't know it was Humble Pie at the time. It was called Thunderbox. So loved it, loved it, loved it. And I ventured further into blues rock, right? I was into Bad Company, which helped me lead me to Free, even greater at blues rock than Bad Company. More pure blues rock rather than blues. But those are kind of my favorites, right? Free and Humble Pie. Uh, Anything else there? Moving on. That's a Bad Company song, right? What is your favorite musical instrument to listen to? Well, I was alluding to this earlier. It's got to be the drums. I tell you, when I heard Bev Bevan that first time, well, I was converted, and I think ever since I've listened for great drum sounds on albums. On Mike Oldfield's Crisis album, Simon Phillips plays drums. Spectacular on that 20-minute title opus. Speaking of Back to Free, Simon Kirke, who joined Paul Rodgers in Bad Company as well. Oh, his drumming, especially in Free, was just phenomenal. It's like I like drumming where you can hear the where you can hear the wood in the stick. That kind of drumming. And I was just listening to a recent find, which is actually something very old, Trapeze, produced by John Lodge of the Moody Blues. That group, Trapeze, they had an album called Medusa. And I fell in love with that album because of that drum sound. I could hear the wood of the sticks, and I just, oh man, that's gets me going the most, you know. I love piano, love organ, Rick Wakeman, Hammond organ, uh, guitar legends, you know. If I've had to pick one, it's got to be drums. Okay, even bass guitar, Chris Squire, right? Yes, what a band of instrumentalists. Okay, number seven. Who's your favorite singer? That's changed over the years. Initially, I fell in love with John Anderson's voice because it was so different, so ethereal. Back when I was 17, 1977 was when I really discovered Yes. The Going for the One album and Turn of the Century and Awaken were just so ethereal. And then I went back into their back catalog and then You and I. Oh, it was like a spiritual experience, right? Um, After that, uh, when I was teaching in my 20s and 30s, I learned about Roy Orbison's music. Really loved his voice, really loved his songs. Huge Roy Orbison fan. And then more recently, and I guess in the last 10 years, it would be Brendan Perry of Dead Can Dance. His voice is just very soothing and pleasant to my ears, very moving. It's partly because of his lyrics, and I'll talk more about that in I think the next question. But if you haven't heard Brendan Perry of Dead Can Dance, there's two great singers in that group. There's Lisa Gerard too, and they're both phenomenal. Okay, they're one of my favorite bands now. Dead Can Dance came late, although I remember the song Rakim. It came out in 1996. I think that was about the time where I was in my last throes of my finding new acts on the radio thing. Right, there was Nine Inch Nails and Dead Can Dance, like that. Okay, number eight. Who is your favorite songwriter? As what I was alluding to a moment ago. At first, I was wonderfully baffled by the prog rock lyrics of Peter Gabriel and John Anderson, even Led Zeppelin for that matter. They had some very cryptic lyrics on like Stairway to Heaven, for example, right? And then I definitely graduated in the latter part of the 70s to Ian Hunter. His songwriting just really flowered when he left Mount Hoople. I mean, it was great in Mount Hoople, but when he left, his songs got even more personal. I would highly recommend God, Take One from All American Alien Boy, and I would also recommend Listen to the 8-track, which is just an outtake from Short Back and Sides, 1981. And those are two great places to start. If you like those, you'll love his songwriting. And then later on, he had an album called Rent, came out in 2001, I believe. There's a song in there called Dead Man Walking. Yeah, good stuff. Anyone else I can mention? Bob Dylan's Legend Lives Large for good reason. Roger Waters always made Pink Floyd lyrics meaningful, that's for sure. What You Were Here is probably one of the finest examples of poetry in the rock music genre. Uh, okay, let's move on. Number nine. Only two to go. Is there an artist I would recommend who doesn't get enough exposure? I mean, the first one that comes to mind right away is Happy Rhodes. She made music in the 80s and the 90s. Things kind of dropped off after that. She made a couple records after that. She's kind of retired now. But her music was phenomenal. Her songwriting was phenomenal. Her voice was phenomenal. And I'm surprised her music wasn't just more well known, like Kate Bush, for example. But it's every bit as good, maybe better. Maybe that's why I couldn't. There was nothing top 40 really in her music. It was a little dark, and you could see that from the album covers. But Happy Rose, I'm just, if you hear, you might fall in love with her music just like I did. Um, there's some more obscure things, you know. Now, if you watch this channel, Find Music, I'm always discovering stuff that needs more exposure. That's kind of the meaning of this channel, really. So let's go to number 10, finish off. Keep this brisk. Number 10 is the hard question, right? But not too hard for me to answer. I've already answered it. Which is most important for you, the music or the lyrics? And for me, it's definitely the music. Like I said, I'm a fan of instrumental music more than, I guess, the average person. I got into so many instrumental musics. Jean-Luc Ponty comes to mind right away. Uh, who else? Who else? Instrumentally. I'll have to I'll do an episode about that. Right. But that is it's the bedrock. I mean, if the music's got a groove and the lyrics are, good too, that's a bonus, right? Good lyrics make a song great, maybe immortal in the eyes of the public. But there's some great instrumentals out there too. Yeah, like some are coming to mind, but I gotta really think of hard to remember them. So I'll just do the episode, okay? So I'll be prepared. So I hope you enjoyed this tour through 10 questions on my own. This is what I ask other people, other music commentators, and I thank them at the end. Thank you, Don, of fine music. And stay tuned for more episodes. Right? We'll be recording tomorrow, not tomorrow, Monday, as usual, with some friends, my regulars. And I hope you enjoy our finds, right? Go to Find Music on Facebook. It's a group, and you can see some of our finds being posted as we find them, and other people post as well. So if you want to find music, go to Find Music on Facebook. Find Music 8797 on YouTube. That's the official address. And delve into our over 700 videos. Oh, yeah. All right. See you soon. Thank you.